Friday. This is Amy with Relatively Sales here with Darin Alpert, the VP of Strategy at RepView. Thanks for joining, Darin.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk with you guys. You have been growing like crazy. I saw that you recently got a seed round of funding from Mill Ventures, and you're just adding so many ratings to your platform to provide transparency to the sales industry. How's the journey been so far for you?
Yeah, the journey is a great way to put it. I feel like it's this ongoing thing that you never know what the next day is going to bring. But yeah, it's been going really well. So just some of my background, I joined as VP of Strategy middle of July. So I've been here just over a month. Had been advising Ryan Walsh, our founder and CEO, for kind of organically and off the table kind of thing over the last year. And previously worked at G2 Crowd, ran a sales team there, and was co-founder of what's now the largest review site for gluten-free people. So I've had a lot of experience in the sales world and ratings and review sites. So yeah, it's been a great journey so far.
That's awesome. When I coach founders, I take them through a 4-week series to really help them go from, tech-based, founder-based selling to preparing for their first sales team. And one of the things that we cover is the transparent data that your platform brings. And the reason for that is because, as we all know in sales, it is really difficult to hire even for, larger growth organizations. And having the transparent data as a founder can be really, really helpful in protecting the investments that you make in your revenue engine. So that you're making the right hiring decisions and have the knowledge of, what a really experienced sales rep is going to cost you within your industry. So, Darin, can you tell us a little bit of, the information and the data that you're gathering within RepView?
Yeah, great question. So RepView is built primarily for individual contributors that are part of revenue organizations. So call it account executives, BDRs, SDRs, account managers, to get an understanding of what it's like, number one, of how their salaries and compensation packages stack up in their own organization, because that can be a sensitive topic, talking to their peers and even management around other people are making. So we break down that barrier. And then if they're looking for a new opportunity, again, in their current organization, if they're looking for promotion, or maybe like a lateral move to like an account manager as an example, if they're an account executive. And then also at new organizations, of course. So, if you're a rep at Salesforce and you're maybe looking at going to Workday as an example, RepView has now over 21,000 ratings across 430 sales orgs.
Wow.
That we've got published on our site. And to get published, you have to have 7 ratings to create this, kind of benchmark data. And yeah, we have data across what's base compensation look like, what kind of commission can I make, what's the ceiling on commission that I can make, what percentage of the team is hitting quota, and that's got a breakdown of maybe it's the mid-market team versus the enterprise team. What's professional training and development look like? How is culture and leadership? Is there product market fit, which I think is a really important topic that we could probably talk about just that, right? What does inbound lead and opportunity flow look like? And then also diversity and inclusion. So no reviews, all benchmark objective ratings 1 through 5 of the things I just mentioned. So yeah, what that does is it arms salespeople with information that they can go into interviews. And then also, because the market's so crazy right now, kind of sort through what companies they should be talking to. So if recruiters are reaching out, promising numbers that don't exist, we get messages every day from reps with screenshots of responses that they send to recruiters and say, hey, you're talking about this kind of money that a rep can make. And I'm seeing on RepView that the team's not even close to that. And the percentage of the team hitting quota isn't that high. And I don't see how I can make this work. So the power shifting back into the hands of reps with the information flow.
Indeed. And I love that percentage to OTE is so important. And we've all been there. We've all taken the job where we think, oh, it's going to be there. And then you get yourself into a sticky situation. I think for our founders tuning in to this episode, sometimes as a startup, you've got to put a lot of budget towards tech. You're still building out these things at the same time. You're trying to shift to like maybe your first sales hire, first sales team. And then so, sometimes I think people that maybe haven't been in sales think, well, gosh, we'll just hire somebody for 100% commission. And I definitely, coming from sales, say, you probably want to rethink that strategy. But what is your take on, what the average tech salesperson is making these days?
Yeah. The commission only thing's interesting. As far as recruiting top talent, I just can't imagine that that's even viable or feasible with how crazy the recruiting market has gotten. I guess the analogy there would be like, imagine hiring like a software engineer and only paying them when they ship product. Like, how does that make any sense? Like, it doesn't, right? You're not going to attract talent without, why would they leave their current role to come to your role and only make commission? It just doesn't make sense. So I think that to answer your question around, well, I guess we could break that down. Like, what is the average tech salesperson making today? Like, is that a mid-market rep, an enterprise rep? Like, we've got all that data broken down on repview.com. So I'd be curious, like, we could go a couple different ways with that.
Yeah, well, I would say probably a mid-market for a lot of the early stage startups, right, is probably comparable. Sometimes enterprise, if they've got a really sophisticated solution. But it's great that you break that down in your platform.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm looking at some of our data right now. If I'm looking at a mid-market rep, that's maybe, I got to re-log in here. I mean, on the average, it's probably about $100,000 base salary and maybe $100,000 in variable compensation if they hit 100% of their quota.
Their targets, yeah.
It's a ballpark.
Sure.
Yeah.
I like that 50-50 split because, it's ramp time when you're trying to sell early stage solutions. You've got to build the brand. You've got to do so many things in order to get traction. So you got to give your rep a little bit of breathing room to be able to pay their bills and live and feel comfortable and, stay with you long enough to build that confidence and maximize their performance with you, right?
Yeah. And to that point, there's a lot of companies that will offer, 3, maybe a quarter, upwards of 6 months. I've seen on the high end, a guaranteed commission in their first year, depending on how long the sales cycle is. So that's something else for startup founders to factor in. It's like, if you want top talent, they expect to get paid.
Yeah, totally. And asking for a guarantee, if you're a rep listing, asking for a guarantee, I think is totally valid. You've got to ask for what you're worth. So like a great example, a really good friend of mine, I won't name names or company names, but he left a very cushy job at a company that was thriving during the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. Top enterprise sales rep at his company, doing really well, was getting recruited from another company whose industry got hit pretty hard during the pandemic. And negotiated a guarantee for his first year, and then also 6 months severance of full OTE if he got let go. So in that first year. So awesome.
Smart move on his part.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the founders listing, the bottom line is, sales is definitely something you're going to have to spend money on, and, something that can really, bring you the ROI that you need if you hire the right, folks. So we're trying to give you, tips on what to ask during interviews, giving you transparency through RepView. RepView's data that is coming from the actual sellers themselves, right? So exactly. You can really understand the market in real time, which is amazing that even exists.
Yeah. And we've actually got a really great blog article. It's the 7 questions you should ask when you're interviewing for a sales role, because there's a lot of people that go into these roles and don't know what to ask, or maybe they get nervous, and it's traditionally the flow of information has been from company to rep, and it's like, hey, we've got a 30-minute interview today, and we've got 5 minutes left. What questions do you have for me? And I've lived it on both sides of that, like at hiring, also getting. Yes. So we've got 7 really hard-hitting questions on our blog about what questions to ask an org, because it should be a two-way street. It's it becomes a marriage in a lot of ways, to be honest.
Totally. And if it doesn't feel like that on either side of the relationship, if you're a founder and you're not getting those questions from your rep, if you're not getting the hard ones and the pushback, and asking about product market fit, asking about what you're going to do when you reach certain growth metrics, et cetera, then you should be worried about that candidate, because you need someone that's going to really stand on their leadership and really be able to hold the flag.
Exactly. And it also depends on like the stage of the company, right? Like the questions I would ask going into a company is the first sales hire, where it's traditionally been the founders selling, versus am I hire number 20 or even 3, 4, 5, 20, 100 or whatever, right? The questions are going to change. But I think the advice to founders, having been a founder and a sales founder, the advice to founders would be sell as long as possible yourself before hiring salespeople, because the risk that you run for your reputation if you start bringing in people too early is, one, is there even product market fit? And then two, you don't even know how to sell your own product if you're going to start having other people come in and do it. Like, and it's like, I'm not a sales founder. It's like, no, you need to be, otherwise you run the risk of your company growing at all.
Yeah, totally agree. I could not agree more with that statement. Well, thank you, Darin, for your time today. I appreciate it. We're going to point everybody in the direction of RepView's site so they can see the amazing data that you guys are pulling together. And if they have questions, what would be the next step into engaging with you guys?
Yeah, I can be reached at Darin, Darin, at repview.com, repvue.com. You can also get a hold of us through our contact page on repvue.com as well.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for joining us today.